Achieving Success with Olivia Akin. I'm your host, Olivia Akin. Each week, we will discuss the roadmap of achieving your personal and professional success. We give you real life stories on growing personally and professionally to achieve your life and career goals with the help of some top notch guests. Today, we are speaking with Robert Bailey. Robert is a former NFL player, two-time Super Bowl champion, and one of the most respected sports agents in the industry, having worked with some of the biggest names in professional sports. After building an incredible career and achieving success at the highest level, Robert has now turned his focus to something even more empowering, changing lives and shaping futures through his nonprofit, the Kennedy Kids Foundation. The foundation is dedicated to mental health awareness and suicide prevention among teens. Robert's passion comes from a place of deep personal connection, and his mission is to break cycles of hardship and replace them with hope, opportunity, and success. Today, he's creating a lasting legacy that goes far beyond the field, one that is truly transforming communities and giving kids a real shot at a brighter future. You can find Robert by going to his website, kennedykids.org, or searching him out on Instagram at Foundation Kennedy Kids. Hello, Robert. It's fantastic having you on the show today.
Great to be on your show. I'm excited to talk to you and be a part of what you're doing. It's very I'm very happy to be on the show and meet your fans.
Well, and let's dive right into it. To start off the show, can you tell me what success means and looks like to Robert Bailey?
Oh, success. What does success mean? That's a great question. For me, success is living your life in a pure space. What do I mean by that? Meaning, whatever makes you happy. Don't chase money. Chase happiness. Whatever you wake up and you're passionate about, find purpose in that. You know, if that job or that career that you're seeking allows you to maintain some level of emotional happiness, uh, mental health, a positive energy through, in your with your mental health, and in turn that makes you happy. To me, that's success. A lot of us chase the money, and when you chase the money, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be happy. And to me, that's not true success. True success to me is it has an alignment with happiness.
And that brings me to a question about how you advise as a sport agent now, as well as your career in NFL. So let's touch upon your career in NFL first for a moment. For you, and as I mentioned in the title, in the description, you became a Super Bowl champion twice, not just once, which
Yeah.
doesn't happen to many individuals who play professional sports. You hold records in the NFL. For you, what is it like during that time building that type of career and recognition and breaking barriers and setting records and all those aspects? How was it going through that, and then how was it mentally on you?
Oh, football was a very interesting time in my life. It was a blessing, but it was also a very traumatic experience for me personally. I say a blessing because financially it allowed my family to have the some of the material things and to grow up in a very comfortable environment, and allowed my family for me to give my family not only what they need but some of the things that they wanted. But just going through my career in football, whether it's little league, high school, college, or the NFL, there were times that it was extremely traumatic through experiences and the coaches and when you're young, and when I say young, I mean pre-20s, right? And you don't know how to handle a coach yelling at you and cuss words that are thrown your way, and some of the aggressive behavior in the way that coaches used to possibly make you tougher. right? It was a very traumatic time growing up, and I think it leads to some of the problems that players have when they retire from football, right? You almost have to take yourself to a place of angriness. You have to be angry in order to play football, really, truly, especially on the defensive side of the ball. You have to get up to a certain amount of aggression and energy, and then after the game, you have to then bring that down and try to bring that down before you go home, right? So for me, I think it was like a two-edged sword, where it was definitely a blessing, and I met a lot of amazing people and people who are still my friends today, and it brought a lot of success in my life. And but also it was a lot of trauma, and I think one thing that in all of these phases, whether it's little league, high school, college and the NFL, I think more therapy should be introduced into some of these phases for each of the age groups as you move up and through these phases. There should be some sort of therapy that's given to the football players, because and that's probably all professional sports, but it's in football where aggressiveness is needed, and you're being coached by many different coaches. I just think that it's one of the sports that should probably implement some sort of program that guys have the ability to talk to therapists.
I completely agree with you. And it's something from my time working at the New York Football Giants where I'd have conversations with individuals. And when you start to pull back the layers of just not them as a
Yeah.
player, right? There's all these experiences they've had. There's all these, like, how do I handle this? And also, too, sometimes there's pressure going on at home or
Yeah.
uncertainty of, like, am I staying with the team? And do I need to relocate my spouse? Like, all these aspects of things that start to come into play that could affect the mental health. And at least when I worked at the Giants for almost, it was 8 years, there's a stigma around the team psychologist coming and talking to you, or you going and advocating for yourself and saying, hey, do you have time today for me to talk? So I think it's a big piece of it as well, like you said, is about understanding there needs to be somewhere you can talk to, especially when you have to do those quick dips and changes in
Yeah,
attitude.
100%. And I'm just gonna break in here for a second. You said guys had the opportunity to say, "Hey, can you talk?" I think for me, I think it needs to be something that's mandatory, right? I think at some point it's mandatory that you go talk, even if you don't want to. When you sit down and you're speaking to someone that's a professional, you'll be surprised what they can get out of you when you thought you were just going to go in there and kind of BS around and leave. All it takes is the right question and the right answer for them to say, okay, he needs to keep coming back. And then, there's a level of trust that builds between you and that particular person, that therapist. And once you build that trust, that therapist now can make a difference in your life and possibly save your life. So I just think it would be amazing if, especially at the NFL level, if guys make it there. And now that college has NIL and college guys are getting paid, colleges also need to, because that's now another factor, right? Their finances. Colleges need to have therapists around that players can go to, but also force them to go see therapy, go visit with the therapist, and it has to be mandatory. I think that's 100%. That will help a lot of guys.
And I love how you bring that up of the word and emphasizing mandatory, because
Yeah.
I think that will break some of the stigma or not wanting to do it or surrounding walking into that room is like, it's another thing you have to do, just like your workouts, just like your meetings with player engagement, just like the events you have to do under community relations. It's something you have to do, and there then those time blocks in the schedule to do that.
All
Robert,
right.
that being said, I want to expand upon that a little bit and bridge the gap to you as an agent now. So after you retired, you decided to become an agent. What was it in that decision, and how now being on the other side, but also having the experience and at such a high level of having such an amazing career in the NFL, do you take that experience into how you engage with your clients as a sports agent? And also emphasizing, I want to emphasize in that question too, the aspect of what you said earlier and what achieving success means and looks like to you is that is not always about the money or accolades, it's about the happiness. So how do you make sure, even in negotiations maybe or conversations, that you're making sure the happiness is always thought about?
Okay, so let me answer the first part of that question. So I became an agent in 2001. I retired, yeah, end of the season of 2001, 2002. So I retired, and really 2 weeks into my retirement, actually 2 months into my retirement, my agent Drew Rosenhaus came to me and said, "Hey, um, we really would love for you to come work with us." And so after a few meetings, I decided to join forces with them. Right. So I didn't have, I didn't have a very long career, well, retirement in terms of, having rest and just relaxing for a little bit before starting my new career. So I 2 months in, I'm back working in the NFL space. I'm starting to travel and going after guys. That's basically how it started. 5 years later, I became the president of Rosenau Sports. So within that, I would say to answer the second part of your question, how do I use my experience as a football player? How's that impacted me in my agent during my agent days now? I would say to you, I am more of a mentor slash agent than agent slash businessman, right? I think when I talk to guys, I connect with them because I played football and I've been where they want to go, right? And so I understand the relationship between the player and his coach. I understand the stress levels of providing for your family through football. I understand what it is to try to make a team every year, right? Because just because you have a contract doesn't mean you made the team, right? So by knowing all of these different aspects, it allows me to connect with my guys. My conversations are very much different than the average agent who may have gone through law school, never played football, just is an attorney who decided he wanted to become an agent and get on the phone with a player and just talk business. I connect with guys because I've been there, I've been on the field, blood, sweat, and tears. I understand the stresses and a lot of the nuances of just trying to get through this jungle of football. And so I'm there as a mentor. I help guys get through these things, get through this jungle. I talk to them about, dotting their I's and crossing their T's, checking all their boxes. I talk to them about family. I talk to them about how to maneuver through the journey of football, how to get to the next year, how to get to the next year, how to get to the next year. And so the conversation is different. And at the same time, in my conversations, I'm taking note of their mental health. I'm taking note of their situation at home, their family, their wife, their girlfriend, their how they're interacting with their kids. And then I customize my conversations based on everyone's personal situation, right? And so for me, that is how my career has helped me become the agent that I am today, right? You mentioned guys and their happiness on whether I'm doing a contract, and before we do a contract, you know we catalog who is happy and who's not happy, right? And if a guy's not happy, then the conversation isn't about getting an extension or signing another contract. The conversation is about maybe trading the player, trying to find why is he unhappy, trying to fix that. And if that can't be fixed, maybe that's just not the team for that player. But if he happens to be happy and he likes the coaches and he likes the environment, then our business is as it is. We go in and we negotiate, and we've done $15 billion in deals just in the last decade or so, and so we're very successful agency. We have a lot of experience, 37 years in this business, and we're recognized as one of the most successful agencies in the business. But for me, yes, being a player has helped me through this particular career and process and how I handle all of my clients.
And that being said, how do you handle sometimes when there's noise going on? When I say that and leaning into the mental health side of things within the agency, you brought up listening and the tone potentially or what they're saying to you. What happens when you get to feel that what is being said is different than how someone is feeling, with a personal thing going on or about a contract or about where to lean in, and they might be dealing with the unknown or just not coming out and say, how do you kind of go a level deeper to make sure you're representing them in the best way, but also making sure they're being heard and seen as well?
Right. So just to start off, um, I lost my daughter, going on 3 years now, to suicide. That is my why, in terms of, why we started the foundation, KennedyKidsFoundation.org, or KennedyKids.org. We started a foundation to help with mental health. Our suicide rate is through the roof. I'm now dealing with friends whose kids are having tough times. I've dealt with players who've had tough times. But in my journey through this mental health space and starting this foundation, I've learned so much about mental health. I've learned about the tools, the resources, and it's actually really opened up my senses to, you know, different words, things that are being said, behavior, how guys are acting at home, in the locker room, their interactions with me when I first met them, and then their interactions with me throughout their career, how things have changed. And it's allowed me, right? The foundation has given me the tools and the awareness to understand my players and find out, hey, my question now is not, hey, how's football all the time? Sometimes my question is, hey, how's your mental health? Right? Because that's not something that's typically asked. So I make sure I ask my guys that. And then, when I do when I am put in a situation where I'm alerted and I know a guy needs help, I have all the resources that we have in our foundation, but also more importantly, the NFL has a lot of resources. And when there's a player, I make sure that I call the NFL. I call their resources. They have an 800 number that is for players, and I call that number and I put them in touch with their therapist, and I let the NFL know, and the NFLPA know that there's something going on with this particular player and he needs help. And so I give credit to the foundation that we've started and the resources that we have, and all the knowledge that I've gained through the foundation, since I've been on this journey. And I give them that a lot of credit in how I interact with my players and how I help my players.
Well, first, I want to say I'm sorry for your loss. I also want to say, even in moments of loss and sadness, such power can come out of it and such impact
Yeah.
can come out of it. And you've demonstrated taking your daughter's name, her legacy, and your experiences and decide to make an amazing impact in the world with your foundation. For you, what has it been like understanding the pain and sometimes potentially, and correct me if I'm wrong, thinking back on moments as you've gone through the journey of starting your foundation and having these conversations?
Well, it is all, Olivia, it's always been, I don't think the pain's ever going to leave. Um, I understand that this will probably be the worst pain that I've dealt with and will deal with in my entire life. I just cannot imagine anything else being worse than this, right? She was 16 years old. And um, there's, you know, there's tough days that I have to get through. And there's days that aren't so tough, but I at least understand that now my daughter's given me a purpose, right? I've always thought I had a purpose, and I do, and I still do. But I think that this has kind of redirected me, the events of losing my daughter, to now another purpose. And with that being said, what matters to me the most is how I impact kids that are going through tough times. How we bring awareness to the families and the parents, um, and and in order to do so, I have to talk about what happened. I have to discuss it. You can't have awareness and keep the things that allowed you or me, right, to bring some education to the people that I come in contact with. I can't not bring that up. That is a part of the story and it is a part of my resource. Now, because of that, I have been educated. I know how to make people aware. I did not know this information before my daughter passed. I had zero clue. No one ever talked to me about it. Um, Suicide was something that was just taboo. You just didn't even talk about it, to be honest. But now, since this generation is having its hardest time dealing with their daily activity and dealing with social media and all the different platforms that are available to them that are influencing them, right? As they sit in their dark room or lay in their dark rooms throughout the entire day. Because kids don't go outside anymore. Because, you rarely see a group of kids riding bikes and having a great time or outside throwing a football around. It just doesn't happen anymore. And so, um, this foundation has allowed me to give the parents that are dealing with those children a chance, right? It gives me the opportunity to give them the knowledge and the information to stop it before it gets to the point of suicide. And for me, that makes me the most proudest. And so, as an agent, I'm an agent. I help guys uh, get to their goals, but I'm also helping them with their mental health. And I'm helping teens with their mental health because they are our future. So that's how I look at it.
And bringing up teens and their mental health, and they are our future. What are some things as you've started the foundation that and now have been in the foundation that you've learned? Because you've talked about the education piece and really understanding the education behind mental health, suicide prevention, and even just in what you were talking about, that it is taboo. There's things, and even in other areas, whether it's pro sports or military or different community norms, where you say, oh, I think something's wrong. I think mentally, like, I'm depressed. And then all these processes that are outdated come into play, or the stereotypes start to come into play, which isn't true. What have you you've taken away through building the foundation and it being what you want it to be and the impact it made that you think is so critical in shaping those teens to understand and their families to understand?
I think for me, the biggest thing is, you have to listen. When teens say, "Hey, I'm sad and I'm not happy," is you can't just say, "Hey, get over it." When teens say, "Hey, I'm depressed and I'm thinking of, I'm thinking about taking my life," right? You can't just say, "Hey, you'll be fine," or why do you feel that way? You shouldn't feel that way, and and then and then walk away. I think the biggest mistake that most parents make because of the tabooness is not taking that third step and saying, let's go get help, and forcing the teen to get help, taking the teen to the hospital and Baker acting them, forcing them to get help. A lot of times because they don't, it's so taboo, they think, hey, you know what? I remember when I was a teen and this happened, or I got bullied, or I broke up with my boyfriend or my girlfriend, and then I got over it. These kids aren't getting over it because they have the internet, they have social media, they have all these influential platforms and people that aren't professional therapists that are telling them what to do, and it's the wrong information. So one of the biggest things that I've learned is listen to your kids. Whatever they're saying, take it for what it's worth. It is worth. The words that they're saying are worth more now today than ever before. And get your kids help. Talk about it at the dinner table. Talk about how they're feeling. Talk about their happiness. Talk to them about their friends. What's going on with their friends? And just get involved as much as you possibly can with your kids and what their daily activities are. And for me, I think physical activity is has just declined, and not many kids are doing the physical activities, and I think that also lends to a lot of depression. So I think, listen to them, keep the physical activity going with your kids, and limit the amount of time they have on these phones, on social media.
Well, let me tell you, my mom, who is a therapist, is very happy you said when she listens to this, will be very happy that you bring up you need to actually go and speak to someone and someone who is trained to handle it. Because a lot of
Yeah,
times there's so much noise and so many people or people who aren't trained. Like
right,
one thing my mom brings up is it's great to be able to have the conversation, but if you're not trained how to handle the conversation, well,
right.
then you rip that band-aid off and now it's like putting pressure on a wound. If you don't know how to stop the bleeding, you're now potentially putting more
Right.
pressure on, and you don't know how to like stop the bleeding, and it can turn out very differently even if that
Yeah.
wasn't
Yeah,
the case.
I come across parents, and the parents will say to me, you know, Robert, you're doing a great thing. My son or my daughter was having a hard time. They're doing a lot better. We talk to them, and we've gotten over the hump. They're doing great. And I'll say, well, did you get them a therapist? And they'll say, well, no, they didn't need a therapist, or they didn't, we didn't get them a therapist, but they're doing better. And I always say, get them a therapist, man. There's so much life ahead of them. If you haven't given them the tools, they may have gotten over this hump, but what about the next hump? They're not going to have the tools. They're not going to have someone to talk to. Maybe they're not going to come to you, and you never gave them someone to reach out to. I believe everyone should talk to a therapist, because I believe we're all we've all dealt with some trauma in our lives at some point. We have all dealt with some trauma, whether it's a bully or trauma from a teacher or trauma from a family member or trauma from sports or trauma is around the corner, every corner. And I think therapists are so important to the mind, just like doctors are, you know, cardiologists or orthopedics or to different parts of your body. Therapists are extremely important to the young mind, um, because these minds are have to be molded and shaped into successful people who are gonna one day be running this country, and through with the trauma and everything that's happening, you can't invest in your future unless you invest in your kids. And when I say invest, I'm not talking money. I'm talking about investing in getting them help mentally with a therapist for that gives them the tools and gives them someone that they can reach out to at any time.
That being said, with everything you've learned and the families and teens you've talked to, how has this and that shaped the way you design programs and initiatives at the Kennedy Kids Foundation?
Well, we just our programs we've partnered with companies like Brave and other companies that we send the kids to. We don't, we don't take kids in and give them therapy. We're the middleman. So when someone reaches out or we come in contact with someone, then we pass them to someone else that does the intake, that does, the questionnaire, and does the interviewing of the kid and the family, and then decides whether what level of care that particular kid or teenager needs. So we build out the programs, we fundraise to pay the therapists, to pay these companies that help the kids, and we also spread awareness. So we go to different events and we talk about mental health among teens. We give out pamphlets that has a lot of information, and our goal is to just be as loud as we possibly can. And then when someone says, "Hey, I hear you, I need help," or "My child needs help," then we get them down the right road to the therapists and the different organizations, that will help.
That being said, I am very much assuming, and correct me if I'm wrong, that that was a very conscious decision to have the Kennedy Kids Foundation really speak and bring awareness and be, in your words, as loud as you possibly can to say, we are here, and when you need us, we will show up. And then say, but we're the middle person. We're going to direct you to what you need.
Right.
And just, and I don't want to say just in a negative term, but like, okay, we're going to solve your problems. Like, we're going to do this and do that. What was the conscious decision and strategic decision in deciding to be that middleman and being able to have we're going to be as loud as we can to bring awareness and all this, but then we're going to be the place where you can come and we have all the resources and the partners and we'll
Well,
direct.
there's a lot of laws, and there's the HIPAA law, and also there's also liabilities. And we're a foundation. We're not a hospital. We're not a clinic. We're not trained in to be therapists. So there's a lot of rules under the foundation umbrella when it comes to mental health. And I'm sure just under any foundation, any particular area, there's rules. But for us we're in the medical arena, right? We're in the psychiatry psychologist arena. We're in that arena. So we have to walk on eggshells because it's a very sensitive topic, sensitive area. So we want to help as much as we can without saying or doing the wrong thing because I didn't go to medical school. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a psychologist, but I do know one, and I do know an organization, many organizations, and I do know the fast track there. So I'm taking my knowledge and I'm helping the parents and the kids that don't know the fast track, that don't know where to turn to, that don't want to call the police or don't want to call 911, and I'm helping them get the help that they need. Our organization, the KennedyKids.org Foundation, is helping them get the help that they need.
And that being said, looking ahead, what is the legacy you hope Kennedy Kids Foundation will leave, not just for teens you're helping now and families you're helping now, but for future generations? And if there's one ripple effect you hope to see in the world because of this work, what would it be?
You know, that's a great question. For me, it's not about legacy. For me, it's just about saving kids. Whether it's Kennedy Kids Foundation, whether it's somebody else's foundation, um, whether it's a group of people that just want to help kids, it's just about helping kids and helping them stay alive. I don't. I'm not interested in having a legacy. I'm not interested in anyone giving me any awards. I'm not interested in you know trying to benefit from this financially. All I'm interested in is really helping the kids get out of a depressive state, helping the kids come out of the dark. That's all that matters to me. And we'll give a donation to the hospital just like we'll give a donation to another foundation that's in our same space, right? It's about helping everyone help the kids. And that's what means the most to me. And keeping my daughter's spirit alive. She's not here, but I want to make sure that people understand that, who she was. And for me, all I care about is keeping her spirit and memory alive.
Robert, how can people get in touch with you if they want to connect with you?
They can reach out to me through um, our organization. Is KennedyKids.org. Our IG is Foundation Kennedy Kids is our IG. You can email me at rb@kennedykids.org. You can go on to kennedykids.org and sign up for our newsletter. So there's a lot of ways you can reach out to us. We answer our emails, we answer our direct messages. We're here if anyone wants to partner with us. We have a paint walk, which is a fundraiser on May 3rd in the Design District. You can go on kennedykids.org and go to our events and register under the Kennedy Kids Paint Walk. The paint walk is from my daughter's school. She went to an art school. We call it a paint walk because we paint T-shirts and then we send out. The walkers put on the T-shirts and we walk through the Design District into Wynwood, which is an art district. You see a lot of art displays and activations out there. And then we walk back. It's about a 2-mile walk total. And we're walking to push awareness. And that's what it's about. And I appreciate you, Olivia, for having me on. This was a wonderful, wonderful podcast, and you're doing an amazing job. And I hope you have the most success. And I just want to tell you, I'm blessed to be on here, and I'm thankful.
Well, thank you, Robert, for all of your insight today, sharing your experiences, sharing your stories, sharing your knowledge and experience, and giving so much of yourself and transparency to the world every single day in
Yeah,
what you're doing. And a few of those key takeaways from today's conversation include have conversations and connect. I think that is a general theme that Robert really embraced, and through his stories and insight he gave to us is have the conversation. Don't scare away from it. Connect with others. Listen, hear, ask questions, right? As well as you can't have awareness of a situation and have experience with it, but not share your story. Robert brought this up when he brought up talking to teens and families about suicide prevention and mental health. His own experiences, the experiences as a parent, as someone who works in professional sports, whatever his avenue is, he shares the story that he has experienced, because you can't have awareness about something without being open to sharing your story and how it has impacted you, as
Yes.
well as take the step of saying we are going to speak to someone, because as Robert said, words are worth more than ever before, and it's really important to understand, and I love how Robert brought this up, that words are powerful, and more in today's day and age, especially with younger individuals, they are really saying what they mean. So
Right.
don't necessarily take it as a joke. Don't brush it off. Words hold power in any situation, in any circle you are in, whether it's professionally, personally, and take note of that. And more importantly, have the awareness that when someone does say that, peek your ears up and say, okay, now it's time to go speak to someone. As a parent, I love how Robert brought up, it isn't just about saying, okay, we handled the situation, we're moving forward. It's about getting a therapist, talking to someone. It's about understanding that long-term win, and we'll use the word success, is understanding your emotions, dealing and having conversations around it, but also having conversations with the right people as well. And as you might have gotten over that hump, but what about the next one? This really
Right.
ties into what I just said, and what Robert mentioned is there's always going to be that hump. For him, whether it was playing to transitioning to having conversations with his athletes, as a father, going through the loss of his child, deciding to make a foundation, there's always humps in every journey we're on. And if we don't have the tools in our toolbox to deal with those humps, just because we've gotten over this one doesn't mean we'll have the tools to get over the next one. And it really ties into the therapy aspect of it. As well as, lastly, everyone help the kids. Just because you might not be a parent yourself, just because you might think you might be overstepping. At the end of the day, push comes to shove, as Robert has mentioned, it's all about helping the kids, making sure they are in the best position they can be mentally, physically, in all aspects of life. This was a great episode with our top-notch guest, Robert Bailey. Thank you for listening, and have a successful day.